Good evening. My name is Peggy Kell, and I'm the Voter Service Chair for the Oak Park and River Forest League of Women Voters. Tonight, we will be holding a candidate forum for the contested April 1st Oak Park Library Board municipal election. There are 8 candidates running for 4 open seats. A recording of this evening will be posted on our website at lwvoprf.org and on the library's website for later viewing by voters. The league does not endorse candidates, but does believe that voters should hear from those that are running to represent them. Our league will be having candidate forums for the contested races in Oak Park, Forest Park, and Elmwood Park in the next few weeks. Please visit our website for the dates and the links to register, as most of our forums will be virtual. You can also send questions for candidates at these forums by emailing lwvoprf1924@gmail.com. Again, you may also submit questions during this forum via the question option on Zoom. The Oak Park Library is our valued partner in these forums. Thanks to Rashmi Swain and Amelia Vargas for all their help with the scheduling and the technology for this event tonight. Amelia will be our timer tonight. Candidates will start with opening statements of 1 minute, followed by questions for all, finishing with a 1-minute closing statements. We will start in alphabetical order and then rotate through the candidates. Candidates are Colin Bird Martinez, Bruce Bergill, Megan Buttman, Matthew Fruth, Maya Ganguly, Daniel Suber, Amy Wilkinson, and Micah Yamamoto. Sorry, always get me screwed up on that one.
Sorry, it's Mika.
Say it again.
Mika Yamamoto.
Thank you, Mika. All right. So Colin, we're going to start with you for the opening statements. And as soon as you start speaking, the timer will start. Go right ahead.
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Colin Bird Martinez, and I'm a proud neighbor, husband, and lifelong member of the Oak Park community. My roots run deep here, having been a member of Oak Park since 1987. As a kid, Maze was my after-school sanctuary where I discovered a passion for sci-fi, astronomy, and history, and weekends were filled with renting movies and reading magazines at Maine. Today, my husband, myself, and my family are regular visitors to the library. These experiences instilled in me a lifelong belief in the power of our library system, especially for our youth. I have a long history of community service, having co-founded an early childhood development not-for-profit, raising $250,000 for a new playground, and serving on a board dedicated to affordable housing, as well as the finance committee of the Oak Park Township. I'm running for the Oak Park Library because I believe every Oak Parker deserves free, equitable access to ideas, resources, and a welcoming environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Public Library for organizing and sponsoring this event. My name is Bruce Bergill. I'm a resident of Oak Park for over 30 years, and I'm a retired professional librarian. I spent 25 years as the head of reference at the Skokie Public Library. Skokie is one of the most diverse communities in our area. Public libraries must adapt to the changing informational landscape by emphasizing its role as the cultural, educational, and civic center of the community, balancing access to traditional collections and services with innovative ideas. I'm running for the board to use my expertise to keep the Oak Park Public Library relevant and vital in the 21st century, and true to the core values often under attack in today's current political climate. But the major impetus for my candidacy is to ensure that the board works closely with its only employee, the executive director, to advance the library's mission and priorities. If elected, I will be sure that regular feedback is given to the new executive director to ensure congruence in this endeavor.
Thank you. Megan?
Thank you. My name is Megan Buttman, and I am a 22-year resident of Oak Park. We moved here actually just shortly before the new beautiful main branch library was opened. My husband and I raised our 2 children here, and we spent much time when they were younger going to the main branch and to the Maze Library. I'm also a 30-year professional law librarian. I became involved with the board or interested in the board last spring after the abrupt firing of the previous executive director. I started attending board meetings and watching them monthly online. And I realized that there was a voice missing from this board, and that is the voice of a professional librarian. I think that I can bring this voice to the perspective to the board as both a dedicated community member and an experienced professional librarian who currently manages 5 professional librarians. I could bring valuable perspective to guide our library's future and support our new executive director through thoughtful, fair, and transparent leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Maya?
Good evening and thank you. My name is Maya Ganguly and I'm one of the 2 candidates running for re-election. I live in Oak Park with my husband, 3 boys, 2 cats, and 1 tortoise. I'm an attorney by training. Across the country, we are witnessing attacks on libraries, their intellectual vibrancy, and their freedom. To be clear, when I joined the board, I knew I would be facing challenges, but that also it was necessary for there to be a collaborative and compassionate intellect to be successful. In the past 2 years, there have been numerous bomb threats, as well as 2 shootings outside of the library main branch. Despite these challenges, our library, its staff, and the board has shown resilience, working with the community, approving a balanced budget, and updating numerous policies and procedures aiming to ensure the strength of this treasure. Listening to and discussing different points of views are requirements for a functional democratic institution, as well as maintaining the knowledge that comes with the experience of having served. Thank you.
Thank you. Annie, would you go now and then we'll get back to Daniel?
Yes, of course. So to introduce myself, I'm Annie Wilkinson. I use she, they pronouns. I'm running for library board because I want to ensure that the Oak Park Public Library remains a library for all, for always, as both a free third space in our own community, as well as a pillar of our democracy and a guardian of free access to information. You can find me at the library several days a week. It's a place where my partner, myself, and our 2nd and 5th graders at Irving all love to spend time. Our library is so much more than a trove of books. It's a place where we experience wonder, belonging, and community. I am an educator and a researcher by profession with a PhD in anthropology. After teaching for a decade in California, at Northwestern, in Illinois correctional facilities, I've returned to the nonprofit sector to draw on my area of expertise, which is studying authoritarianism, to support social justice organizations in the US to respond to this anti-democratic attack. And I hope to bring my nonprofit experience, expertise in navigating these challenges, and passion for the library to the board.
Thank you. Mika?
Yes, hello. Can I start? Good evening. My name is Mika Yamamoto, and I've been an educator for over 25 years. Currently, I get to teach the lovely children at Oak Park River Forest High School, and I also teach writing at the School at the Art Institute of Chicago. When I walk into the library, I feel the vision, which is that it is a library for everyone. And I feel this when I come in contact with any of the wonderful staff. However, today, our political climate challenges this, and it's going to be very difficult to maintain the library that we love. I am running because anyone who knows me will describe me as fierce. And if I'm trustee, I will make sure that the library remains a library for all, for always. That knowledge is free and the staff is happy. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. Matt, go right ahead.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this event, and thank you to the library staff for facilitating the technology for this. My name is Matt Fruth. I am a lifelong resident of Oak Park and also a lifelong user of our public libraries. Whether it was doing homework in the Maze branch after school, taking my daughters to shake, rattle, and read at the main branch, or reserving the dome meeting room for our girls' Girl Scout troops. I know firsthand the value of our libraries and the staff to our community. I'm running for re-election to use my experience to help ensure that our public libraries remain a strong and empowering resource for everyone in our community. I know that I bring the right combination of experience, open-mindedness, passion, and deliberation to help guide our library over the next 4 years. And I humbly ask
Oh,
for
you're
your
not
vote.
on yet, that's why.
Thank you. Sorry, Matt, about that. Go back to you for the 1-minute opening statement. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Dan Suber, and I'm running for the Oak Park Library Board. I decided to get involved last March when I learned that Jocelyn Dixon, the former executive director, was abruptly fired from her job without so much as a formal evaluation or proper notice, a list of charges, and other due process safeguards that would have allowed her to mount an effective defense. That was unfair. I've lived in Oak Park for nearly 40 years, which I was an attorney for in private practice with my own firm and attorneys in both downtown Chicago and Valparaiso, Indiana. I retired on the 1st of this year. If elected, I want to bring back a coherent process and a fundamental fairness to the board's decision-making and guard against censorship and the anti-library forces in the country that threatens to block access of information to you and me. I want to clarify the library's policy, defining a community versus a library-led event, and open up the process under which items come before the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Bruce, you're going to get the chance at this question first. Libraries have become a battleground for culture, gender, and racial issues. How would you, as a board member, navigate a discussion on these issues?
Well, as a board member, I think I make sure the library is an open institution for discussion of all these topics, that there was no censorship, there was no denial of people's right to speak because of their sexual orientation or political views. So I think that's a fundamental value of the library. And I would make sure that all voices in the community were heard and available to speak and be heard.
Thank you. Megan?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. And let me remind you, if you need me to repeat the question, any of these questions, just ask and I will do that. Libraries have become a battleground for culture, gender, and racial issues. How would you, as a board member, navigate a discussion on these issues?
Thank you. As a librarian, I fundamentally believe in being inclusive. I believe in the freedom to read. I believe in openness at every angle. I also believe that some of the threats to the library are not necessarily coming from the traditional ways that we're used to threats happening to libraries. It's not so much conservatives in Oak Park trying to ban books, but if you look what's happening in Northbrook right now, or not, what's happening in Northbrook with the ACLU was after the library for their meeting policies. There have been book bannings that come from the left for things as recently as 2020. To Kill a Mockingbird was on the most challenged list of the ALA for its racism and white savior tropes. So I want to have an open discussion, and I want to make sure it's inclusive and includes all, but I want us to be very aware and very open to the idea that these things can come from every direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I cannot quite remember who was famous for, who is cited as saying it, but a library should contain something to offend everyone. We need to have a place that is a marketplace of our ideas where we can freely express ourselves and share our differences. But we do at the same time need to protect those of marginalized communities. And while we must be open, it must be respecting the dignity of the life experiences of people in our community and not, fall victim to the tolerance paradox of allowing oppressive voices to gain traction. We must, and as a board member, I will continue to support policies that support our professional staff and our community and reaffirm our commitment to the ALA tenets and rights of readers.
Thank you. Maya?
As a board member, your goal is governance. You have two main jobs under Illinois statute. One, you review library policy, and two, you have one employee, which is the executive director. Part of what a board member's job is to ensure that the executive director is properly managed and open and listening to all members and voices in the community. Two is ensuring that you are passing, reviewing, and helping to guide policies that ensure open, free access. This is the battleground because this is where democracy is 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 born, is the access and the ability to have information and the free thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
The key to this problem is communication. We have to have a library where all groups have access to communicating their views on a myriad of different subjects. That is the essential function of a library. Where we get into trouble is where we don't have a policy that clearly defines a community versus a library-led event. That's what gets us into trouble. And we have to clarify that policy so that anyone representing any group has free and fair access to the forum that a library can represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Annie?
Oh, the timer says 9 seconds. It's okay.
Needs to be reset.
Yeah. Amelia?
Um,
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So I study this, and I'm in regular contact with folks all over the country who are currently facing this kinds of attacks that we've been seeing on freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of association. And these kinds of attacks and libraries are like ours are under attack because authoritarians know that free access to information for everyone is a basic prerequisite for democracy and therefore is perceived as a threat. And I think it's therefore vital that we safeguard our ability to access information freely and openly. That's the basis of an open society, and I will work to support library staff to ensure that that is the case. I think it's important to look at who these attacks on this access is directed towards. The vast, overwhelming majority of these kinds of attacks we've been seeing across the country have been directed towards the inclusion of ideas and people of color, LGBTQ people who make up my family, for example. And so I think that this is a really important issue that is going to be demanding more and more of our attention, and that I'm very personally invested in supporting our library through. We have guidance for that.
Okay.
The principles. Sorry, I couldn't see the timer.
That's all right. Thank you. Mika?
Hi, so I know that these conversations are happening all over the place, and I think the way to make sure that we don't harm the community as we're having these conversations, which are very important, is that we need to be prepared, and we can be prepared. I know that there are trainings for trustee members, and I know that, you know, our state can help, our state library can help, and so as a trustee, I would make sure that I am in communication and in community with other boards and also community member. And my priority would be that absolutely, like, this is where we need to have these conversations. In the last month, I've been to 2 events at the library where conversations were happening that I know were not really happening anywhere else in town. So I love that about this library. I want to safeguard that. And I also want to make sure that people are not being harmed in that process. And for that, there needs to be we need to know how we're doing this.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, so I support the American Library Association's Bill of Rights around this, which mentions excluding, not excluding origin, background, or views contributing to integration and racial diversity. I believe from a trustee standpoint, things that we can do is strengthen partnerships with local schools, not-for-profits, and businesses in the community. I believe board members also have a responsibility to do one-on-one meetings and maintain close ties with those organizations and politicians in the community to have that dialogue and make sure that the library's of racial diversity is protected.
Thank you. Megan, you're going to you start this next question first. How will you work to make sure that people or communities being targeted by the federal government continue to feel welcome, safe, and included at our libraries?
Well, I think that's an interesting question, and it's a very important one. Libraries previously were covered under the same policy for immigration that schools and churches were, but it looks like that's off the table. Rails, which is an organization, a group of libraries that I know the Oak Park Public Library works with. I know that they just put something out talking to their attorneys about this and how to deal with this. There are Illinois laws that protect records in libraries that they believe will still be protected, but it is going to have to be a concern. So I don't have an answer, but it is of the utmost importance. I also know from listening to committee meetings of the current board that this is a question that they asked. Some people people who they interviewed for the executive director position. I was really happy to hear that. So the answer is I don't have a solution, but it's top of mind, and it's going to be an important thing that this board has to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you. Unfortunately, this is not the first time we have seen pressure from the federal government when it comes to those who use our libraries. Going back to the institution of the Patriot Act, public libraries have been ready to stand up and defend the rights of all those who walk through our doors, and we must continue to do so. We have excellent partners, as was mentioned by another, with Rails, who many of the staff there have worked at the Oak Park Public Library, so we have tremendous relationship with them and their resources, and the attorneys that they have provided guidance are our attorneys. So we have incredible resources that we can lean on, as well as just the breadth and heart of all of our library staff who care deeply for our community and are ready with the board's support to stand up and protect our community.
Thank you. Maya?
So with all due respect and apologies, I am a compliance attorney. So I'm always going to start with the training and the training of the staff. I'm going to start with the policy behind and the vision statement, which is another piece of those policies that the board creates and is really paramount in ensuring that we have a clear, direct message to the public and that every member of our library staff is properly trained in how it should be treating the people who walk in through those doors. Every single person who walks through the doors of the library, whether they are the wealthiest man in town or an indigent person, is a patron of the library and deserves to be treated with open arms and with respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, I think Maya makes a very, very good point. The staff has to be trained to be extremely welcoming to all patrons, regardless of their feelings and their views. I think the whole library has to be on guard against the anti-library forces in this country to limit the information that's available to the public. Currently, there are 6 states with bills pending to allow the state to ban books or otherwise limit information to the library public. There's no such bill pending in Illinois, but Maya is correct that we have to lean on the attorneys available to the library to make sure that there's that such a bill does not become law in Illinois. We have to be constantly on the lookout for these anti-library and anti-freedom forces which limit the scope of the information available to the public.
Thank you. Annie?
I think that it is important to make our support for those who are under attack explicit, and that's important. But I also think that actions speak louder than words. And so the kinds of things that I think are going to make people feel safe and welcome in the library are really about what we do. Those are things that are long-term investments that we've been doing, like robust community engagement programs and strong youth programming. And this has to start with a policy. And that will have to include, as Maya mentioned, strong training of staff, and particularly things like empowering social workers rather than, police, for example, which is something that the library has already done really well. I can't see the timer, but that's about it. But I also want to just say in my last few seconds that while it's sort of in the news to talk about book bans, I'm actually even more concerned about defunding efforts and the way that that's going to put pressure on our libraries. And so that's something that we're also going to need to tackle as a board.
Thank you. Mika?
Hi, so the way that people feel comfortable is basically how the staff treats them. I mean, that's number one. And so to Maya's point, like training is absolutely essential, but also to give them the space to do the right thing. And a lot of times the staff is, and they have good ideas. And I know there has been lots of effort to have a diverse staff, because the way you feel that you belong is if you see other people there. And so it is very important that the staff is diverse. And I know there's been efforts towards that. And I know there's also some backpedaling of that. And so I think as a board member, we do need to make sure that the policies are protective of our staff who are doing the good work, and that the executive director is doing a good job taking care of the staff, and that we are all well trained on how to make the space as inclusive as possible.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, so I'm proud that Oak Park Library is a book sanctuary community, starting out with that. That's a testament to our commitment. When I'm a board member, I would look at that and see if we can strengthen that a little bit more. In recent years, we've seen these attacks on libraries. You see it in Republican circles, you see it in Florida and Texas. These attacks aren't limited just to funding cuts and censorship. There are also active bomb threats that also happen at our library. So, firstly, I would make sure we have that proper funding and in safety. We have a safety team. I believe it's 4 people. I would want to listen to the future executive director if they think we need more resources around that, be it another social worker or anything like that. I would also work closely with local government, law enforcement, and community organizations to make sure we have strong safety protocols.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, the library should be a welcoming place and do everything to ensure that within our powers. Unfortunately, ICE also has access to the library. Legally, they could come in. There's not much we could do about that, but we can. We have legal rights as far as library records, employee records, where it would be necessary to have a court order for the government to access those parts of the library. So I think, again, the library should be open for all. If there are crackdowns for people on their sexual or gender orientation, the library, there's no place for that in the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt, you're going to have the first crack at this next question. The past several years, an unbalanced budget was approved. What are your thoughts about deficit spending or using reserves?
Well, my personal opinion is you don't spend money you don't have.
I'm sorry, Daniel, it's Matt's. Did I say Daniel?
You did.
I'm sorry,
No,
it's supposed to be Matt. Matt, you had this one first.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, the annual budget is always one of the hardest decisions we make every year, in balancing the needs of our community through the services as well as the impacts that come through our property tax bills. We have had some deficit spending over the last several years. That was facilitated through our fund balance being in a strong position where we were slightly overfunded based off of our target, and allowing us to use some of that funding for capital projects, as well as some other staff salary adjustments. This year, we have passed a balanced budget uh, that the staff worked very, very hard on to present to the board, and that will be one of the first things that the new executive director will be working with the next board on, is the development of our 2026 budget.
Thank you. Maya?
For me, a balanced budget is always the ideal, right? That is always what we aim for. That is always what needs to happen, what should happen. The reality is we don't live in an ideal world. The previous budgets were passed under COVID, right? We're past when there was a time when the average American, the average Oak Parker, frankly, was struggling. And so that is why you have the reserves. That's why, you always aim for the ideal so that you have that wiggle room if necessary. For me, it is a really important thing to be a fiduciary of our public funds. I spent most of my career as a public servant and was always very aware of that piece. So it is ideal. It is not always something we can reach based on the realities of sometimes unprecedented times. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, I agree with Maya that a balanced budget is the ideal. And having looked at the 2024-2025 budget, in fact, the revenue is the same as the expenses. In fact, that's a balanced budget. Congratulations. There is a $600,000 capital expenditure deficit, and I believe that will be resolved when the new board takes effect. But I think we have to be on guard for expenses that have the potential of exceeding our revenue, and to guard against imbalanced budget that could further hurt the library in the future as it has in the past.
Thank you. Annie?
Yeah. Certainly, I agree that the aim of the board is to ensure that we have a balanced budget, and that the board has to consider the needs of the library as well as the resources coming in. And I think that we have to consider that that is something that may vary year to year, and there may be instances in which we, to answer the question, have to dip into reserves. I found the board to be considered in the past about if and when those things come to pass. It's difficult to project into the future, but I think that the board is well on track with its current budget, and I would look forward to continuing to exercise responsibility, as well as continuing to balance the needs that we face in the coming years.
Thank you. Mika?
Yes, I also agree that everybody knows that a balanced budget is the ideal, and we all live our lives. We all have our own personal finances, and we know that doesn't always happen. But that doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. And we had the privilege of having an information session, and this was all explained to us, and I felt very comfortable leaving that meeting, feeling that the library and the board and the financial manager had a very good grasp of how money was coming in and how money was going out, and how things needed to be prioritized. So I agree with Annie that I look forward to working with the current board and working with the staff and making sure that both our priorities are met, and we don't let go of like diversity initiatives and things like that, and still have a balanced budget.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, like some others said, we have a balanced budget. We all had the opportunity to meet the director of the finance team, and I think they're doing a superb job in terms of looking at, and then there's this capital expense this year on HVAC. I think it's important to that raising the levy or raising or tapping into reserves is the last resort without reducing services or staff. So I would definitely make sure we looked at that if we needed to. I have an extensive background in finance. I work in consultant management. I used to work at Boston Consulting and S&P Global. I understand how to do due diligence. You know, when we look at the audits at the end of the year and the budget, I'll definitely be a good asset there.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I agree with everybody that a balanced budget is the ideal. I also know that things happen. Insurance and benefits rates have been skyrocketing. Also, capital expenditures. I'm the chairman I'm the president of my condo board, and you can't plan everything. You can't plan for a chiller to go out. You can't plan for a leak in the roof. These things happen, and you need to repair them. So there are times where you go into deficit spending, but try to keep a little wiggle room for that. But you can't plan everything that's going to happen in a year unless you have a crystal ball. And currently, I don't have one.
Thank you. If you do find one, though, would you tell us about it, Bruce? Because that would help a lot of people. Megan.
Thank you. Yeah, so, echo, it's a balanced budget. It is the first time in several years, as Maya indicated. There's $600,000 capital projects. Like I said at the beginning, this building is 22 years old, which seems like yesterday to me. But as the facilities director told us, there's going to be a lot of things coming. I think that it is fantastic that 74% of our budget is spent on our people. I don't want that to change, but this is a static budget. We have a new executive director coming on. We have to be open to his or her ideas about what they want to do with this budget. There are some libraries that have foundations. Does the executive director interested in developing a foundation for some other projects? There is things I'd like to see. I'd like to see another social worker. I'd like to see more money given to tuition reimbursement for employees. So, it's really, I would work closely with the executive director and hope that we can continue having a balanced budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Maya, you will start this next question first. Do you think the relationship between the staff and the board needs to be repaired after the firing of the executive director last spring?
Yes, I think that it is not easy and it's not an overnight process. I think there are a lot of staff that understood the decision, even though they weren't necessarily privy to all the information. They saw that there is a lot of tension and that there is divisions within the library. I think, unfortunately, the public got to see some of the disagreements between staff. It is not just between the staff and the board, but between the staff and the community, as well as with each other. It is hard work. And that is one of the reasons I always try and lead with compassion and with listening and with asking the other side to speak first.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, the question raises the point of why I'm running for the board. I'm in gathering the 50 signatures that I received on the filing petition. At least 2 out of 3 people who signed it raised the question of the fundamental fairness involved in Jocelyn Dixon's firing. It wasn't clear to any of them, as it is not clear to me, how this complaint started, as an employee grievance or not, and why it wasn't resolved at the personnel level, how it got to be on the board. It seems to me that the personnel department is the first layer for resolving an employee grievance. And then, as our policy reads, the final say is with the executive director. It isn't clear how this even got to the board and how it got on the board's agenda. And if it did, why there wasn't more explanation as to why the board took this drastic action of terminating Jocelyn Dixon after only 14 or 15 months without a formal evaluation.
Thank you.
That's not
Thank you.
fair.
Thank you. Mika?
Hi, so I can't say whether there needs to be repair done between the board and the staff because I don't know what's happening. You know, I'm not privy to that. However, I do know that in several board meetings, it's been mentioned that 17 library staff members have left in the last year, and of those 16 are BIPOC identifying, and there's been no explanation of that. And I am in a union for both of my work, so I'm very much like on the side of the worker. And for me, my question is, like, how do we make sure that the staff is taken care of? How do we make sure that they are okay? Right now, I would say the numbers would say something needs to be addressed. I don't know what that is.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, similar to Mika, there's some confidential information that we aren't privy to that some board members were, and there was some decision, you know, and the thing I would say about that is similar to Dan, when I was collecting petitions, it's brought up a lot, and if it's brought up a lot and there's negative publicity around it, then there's steps we need to take that make that better. So the trustees bear the responsibility of a fair and equitable oversight of the ED. We need more cleared, structured rules governing the executive director, ensuring a consistent principal decision-making that's both justified and easily understood by the public. I would definitely want to look again at the policies that we have to make sure we have a transparent and accountable system to make sure we have the best leadership that we possibly can.
Thank you. Annie, did I skip you?
Yes,
Okay.
you did.
You go next, Annie.
Okay. The answer to the question is yes. I believe there is repair to be done, and I would, as a board member, look forward to supporting that process. Conflict in communities is nothing new, and I think that we absolutely do have the possibility to repair harm, to continue to grow, and to learn with humility and compassion. I think that being a trustee means that we have to listen to all stakeholders and consider a range of factors in our decision making. It would be incumbent upon us, speaking as a elected board member, if I were to be, I would believe that it's important for us to consider all of the parties involved and to ensure both transparency in our decision making and our communications to the degree permissible, and also ensure that we respect legal or ethical requirements like confidentiality for personnel matters. And I think that there's a lot to balance here, and to echo some of what was said before, I think that begins with listening, and I am confident that that can be done.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, I believe in the restorative process. The trust needs to be restored back between the board and the employees again. People are going to disagree, but people need to be heard and understood. The board needs to be heard and understood. The different factions, if there are in the workforce, need to be heard and they need to be understood. And the director as well deserves the same process. So yes, I believe it's going to be a process. There is animosity, I know, but I think the board can begin the healing process as soon as possible.
Thank you. Megan?
I think the answer is an absolute yes. I don't know all the details of the things that need to be fixed. But I know there is a lot of fraction. I think that strong and compassionate leadership from the top, being the board, is the most important thing. Having a working and functional and productive relationship with the executive director will go a long way in helping that. Like Mika, I sat through the meetings where there was so much angst about all of the BIPOC employees that left. And for me, I saw this board, in my opinion, treat a Black woman in a position of power unfairly. And I think that representation matters, and that might be part of the situation. I'm sure there are other factors, but I think we need as a board to lead with compassion and have a working, productive relationship with the new executive director and make sure that that trickles down into staff and that things are working productively. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Yes, I do think there definitely is room for repair of the relationship and trust between the board and the staff of the library. I hope that staff has looked at the process of which we have approached the hiring of a new executive director with staff engagement, with staff feedback, and including a member of our the staff leadership team um, on the search efforts will demonstrate to them that we are serious regarding their concerns, as well as we are in the middle of conducting an anonymous staff survey uh, through an outside firm to collect their feedback that will come directly to the board in reports that so that we can hear directly from them in an anonymous way so they can feel safe sharing that feedback with us, and we can take that to heart and work with the new executive director in uh, rebuilding the relationship throughout the entire organization.
Thank you. Daniel, you will get the next question first. Does the library's policy to review books for cultural and racially sensitive content work? And what happens to books that may be inappropriate?
That has a lot of questions in that question. And the first question is the library's process for reviewing those books a viable process? And I think what the new board should look at is whether or not that process reflects the community values in terms of what we're looking for in deciding whether a book is appropriate. Now, I'm not a fan of censorship in any way, shape, or form, but it seems to me that the community should have input into that process as well as the board and the library staff. And I think what's lacking in our process is community input into that process, which is lacking at the moment.
Thank you. Annie?
I think it's important for us to think about our sort of immediate or our current term and sort of like immediate future, as well as taking a longer view. As I mentioned earlier, we know that the attacks that we're facing are not evenly distributed, right? We are facing attacks particularly against certain kinds of people, particularly people of color, queer people, et cetera. And I think we need to have an eye for protecting those in our community who are facing those attacks right now. We also need to take a long view and think about ensuring that we set up policies that don't sort of inadvertently create barriers to access to information. And that's a difficult balance to strike. And it's going to require input from multiple parties, including staff, a variety of community that reflects the diversity of our community. And once again, I think that this is an area that the board will require attention.
Thank you. Mika?
So I know that in 2024, like something around over 1,000 books were challenged. But they were, as Annie said, not evenly distributed. They were predominantly attacking gender issues and trans and queer characters and creators. And so I feel very comforted by the fact that we are a book sanctuary community, and that the Oak Park Library is very committed. It says on their website, we are not neutral on this topic. Like, we are very adamant about protecting the right to read, which is a constitutional right. So I think this is like very important that we continue to protect and continue to abide by best practice on how to be an inclusive library.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, so once again, I'll reiterate what Mika said, that I'm really proud that we're a book sanctuary community, and I commend the existing board for helping pass that policy. That was 2 years ago, and we have already seen Republicans have become even more aggressive. So I would love to revisit that and see if we can strengthen that, if we need to strengthen that. I strongly believe, that intellectual freedom is a cornerstone of our democratic society, and libraries are the guardians of that. I think that from a trustee's perspective, we need to make sure that we ensure those rights and access to a wide range of ideas and perspectives. And I would make sure to advocate for that, either in the community, during public events of that nature, and then, of course, making sure the requirements for the executive director when we do the audit each year to make sure we look at the strength of the book sanctuary community.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I'm also proud of Oak Park Library and its collections. I know the collections department has been cited for the book selection policy being diverse for different views and also the library was one of the first to have a transgender collection, special collection, one of the first in the country. I'm proud of that. I don't want to see censorship in any form. And also I want books that are older and may have views, as Matt said before, the library has something to offend everybody. Mark Twain uses many words that I wouldn't use. He characterizes racial diversity in ways that I wouldn't use, but I think it's important we not censor Mark Twain either. So it's keeping the library open to all forms of ideas, even if we do have to have Melania Trump's book.
Thank you. Megan?
Yeah, so I think we're probably all going to agree on this one. I'm a librarian too. It is one of the first values, ALA Bill of Rights, freedom to read. As a librarian, I'm probably going to want to include everything. But I think that, as Bruce said, we really have to also look here. We are looking at staff. Our collection staff at the Oak Park Public Library is amazing. And Lee did mention, I think it was a meeting in the spring, that Baker and Taylor, who's a library vendor, they are a library collection management company, announced a partnership with the Oak Park Library in recognition of its intentional work curating diverse and inclusive collections. So I think that this library is doing a great job. I would never stand in the way of it continuing to do a great job. So like I said, this is an easy one, and I think we have the staff that does a fantastic job at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you. I'm very proud of the strength of our policies around our collection that we have. They have been written and revised over the years with feedback from our staff and guided by the principles of having an open and accessible public library. Our staff has been doing amazing work and bringing stuff to us. Back in 2018, members of our collection staff did a diversity collection audit and presented that to the board. That was Barbara Fitzgerald, Joanne Freibel, and Noemi Pretty, who did incredible work to show the progress we have made, but also the progress that needs to be continue to be done to make sure we have a diverse collection that is representative of our community and that we listen. But at the end of the day, it is the board to empower our professional staff who are interacting with the public every day and knows what our community needs and what that is. And we also have to listen. Just last year, someone asked for us to carry a Tucker Carlson book that we didn't carry, and our library acquired it for them. So we are doing that work, but the staff, the professionals who are there, are the ones who I trust.
Thank you. Maya?
I concur with everything that has been said before me. It is a really paramount issue that there is access, that there's diverse and differing views, and there's also the historical view. I was at the same board meeting with Matt when we did have somebody complain, or rather, it was brought forward that someone was complaining about the lack of certain more conservative views. It's not that we didn't have them, and it's not that we were censoring them. It's that we had them and no one had checked them out for a particularly long time. There seemed to be something within the question to suggest that there was some kind of censorship. And I did want to clarify that there is always access, and we do have free, open access to even Melania Trump.
Thank you. Poor Melania is getting a really bad name tonight. All right, Annie, you're going to have the next question first. What's your number one priority for the library in the future?
That is a very difficult and unfair question to come up with just one.
I'm glad someone put it through there.
But I want to highlight maybe if I had to choose one, I would say that it's so important for us to recruit and retain excellent staff, including by making sure that the library is a great place to work. Just like our library staff work to make Oak Park a great place to live and to go to the library. Other priorities, I've talked a little bit before about navigating the current political moment, and being prepared for how that's going to unfold, not just the book bans and the sort of authoritarian measures, but also the austerity ones. And finally, I'm really interested in making library governance accessible by not just educating our community about the resources available to them, but also how the library and library governance works, to include our community in our decision-making and processes.
Thank you. Mika?
Right. I want to echo Annie and say that I think a diverse staff is very important. And especially right now, it looks to be a struggle, so we really have to address this. But everything that we're talking about in terms of like how we want people to feel welcome there and how we want our collection to be diverse, all of this is sort of pinned on the fact that we have staff that represents the community and that has diversity and can bring different perspectives and then do the work that they do, as librarians, as maintenance, as everybody is important. Like only about 30% of the staff actually has a library degree. So it's not just librarians, but they all are part of making that library that wonderful place that it is. So that's my top priority. And part of that would include, like, we do have to address all this like national challenges that are coming up because we need to do that to protect our staff.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, I think one of the first things is to make sure that this stays a viable third space for people. We don't really have third spaces anymore, indoor at least, where you don't have to buy something, right? Go to a restaurant somewhere else to hang out with people. I want to make sure that we never make anyone feel like they need to buy something to go to the library. My main focus really is I spoke earlier about my childhood at the library and how special that was for me. So youth-centered services are really important to me. The library has over 20 people working at that right now. It's and I think 7 for high school and middle school. I would definitely want to look at that with the executive director and see if we need any more resources in that area. Also important to me is the safety around and also the bomb threats that are happening or were happening with our librarians. So I would try to make sure that we also strengthen that safe community feel.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, Colin kind of stole my thunder there because I also I think the main thing is to keep the library vibrant and relevant in this rapidly changing information world where it's still, it's one of the last vestiges where people can have community. And I think having the spaces, I think we need to look at more comfortable furniture. I think we need to look at upgrading the veterans room to make it more of a performance space. We have to look at meeting spaces, which we have many of. We need it to be a community center and not lose focus also on traditional services, books and materials and such. But I think it's going to be a challenge. The world is changing quickly. Media, we need to keep the community and the kids especially engaged in what the library has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
Well, they both stole my thunder. So vibrant third space. I think that is really important. I think that, and it's the one thing, as I will say, as not being a public librarian, that would be new to me if I were on the board to sort of get to comfortable with that and understand that, because I think it's really important. I think that keeping vibrant branches, I mean, to have the fact that we have 3 branch libraries in a town this size is amazing. I think it was Colin that talked about growing up going to the Mays Library. My kids went to the Mays Library. My son was 9 years old when he figured out on his own he could interlibrary loan a book, so son of a librarian. I think that we have those spaces in neighborhoods like this that kids can go to, I think is important. So I think keeping those things going is of the utmost importance. Of course, staff, you have to keep staff feeling that they're safe in all these spaces as well. So that's what I think.
Thank you. Matt?
Could you repeat the question, please?
What's your number one priority for the library for the future?
I think that touching on what has been mentioned before, I think the core of so much of what we do is our staff. As was mentioned, 74% of our budget is allocated to our staff salaries and benefits and support. And when the staff is feeling safe, supported, they are allowed to be creative and free and innovate ways that continue to provide tremendous service to our community. That is going to take many shapes. What there will be improvements of our buildings, so that it's environmentally comfortable for them, so that it is a place that they look forward to going to. It is a board that passes a strong budget and policies that gives them the space to do that work. And for me, it always comes back to taking care of our staff.
Thank you. Maya?
My number one priority for the library in the future is to ensure that it remains a vibrant and intellectual space. My number one priority for myself as a board member is that I am leading and supporting with compassion, a level head, and logic.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, my number one priority would be to make sure the board reaches out to the community to explain a lot of things that have happened in terms of why Jocelyn Dixon was let go. I think the library does not exist in a vacuum. It's not just the board and the staff. There's a community that needs answers. And when they don't get answers, the library suffers. So my number one priority would be to reach out to the community and explain things that went on with regard to our former executive director.
Thank you. Mika, you'll have the, I Now, let's see. This may be the last question. We'll see how it goes. What is your one favorite service that our libraries offer? Because I know you have a lot of them, but let's try and channel it into one of your favorite services that our libraries offer.
Well, so this is because this is so much on my mind, but the way the library has partnered with the student clubs recently with most recently it was the Know Your Rights event, and then also the Palestinian Day of Celebration event. And you know, being a high school teacher, being a teacher, I love it so much. I love going to these events, seeing students have a space to really like do important work and care and be so competent, and also like actually like, you know, physically help people in the community. I just love that.
Thank you. Colin? You're still muted, Colin.
Sorry about that. So
All right.
my passion, I come from a family of artists, and art is really important to me. And I love that we have this creative studio for adults. And I love the community space we have up front in the entrance for many different events. But currently we have local artists for for African History Month, so Black History Month, excuse me. So those are things that I really love and want to see continue.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, well, the one service, gee. I love the e-media that the library offers to the community, the ebooks, the downloadable movies, the movie streaming service, things like that. I think that serves the whole community very well, and puts the library in the center of even people's little devices. But besides that, the community programs, I think the programming department does a wonderful job keeping the library a vibrant place.
Thank you. Megan?
Okay, so mine's going to be super boring because I have a boring job. I would say it is access to all the online periodicals. I mean, anytime I hit a paywall when I'm trying to research something online, whether it's Crane's Chicago Business, The Economist, New Yorker, whatever it is, I know that I can go from my computer with my library card and get that article. And I think that people don't use that as much. Now, my other favorite thing that I have not used yet, but I'm totally looking forward to using is the Library of Things. I'm going to check out a drill. I might check out some tables. The things there are pretty amazing. And so I am glad they're there. But I really do, I mean, joking aside, I do think the access to those online periodicals from your desktop is helpful to people. Because how many times do you hit those paywalls when you're online looking for an article that you want to read?
Thank you. Matt?
Oh, this is very timely. I am currently for the last year or so been an avid user of our Hoopla and Libby e-audio books. I just got downloaded yesterday God's Heroes and Monsters on audiobook, but also uh, grabbed myself a copy of Mask of Mirrors for my Kindle via Libby. They are tremendous resources that provide access of materials to so many people in our community, especially with through our digital only cards that we introduced during COVID. Probably my right up there with it is the book bikes that allow our staff to take the services and card issuances and books out into the community at park district events, block parties, and community events all over. It's a truly remarkable uh, service that brings us out, outside of our walls.
Thank you. Maya?
So something weird happens to you when you become a parent is what my favorite thing is and what my children's favorite things are different. And as always, it is what my children's favorite things is, which will take precedence as terms of what my favorite thing is, which is the children's section. I loved taking my kids to the story times when they were little. I loved taking them to the twains. They loved the twains. And I loved that they were comfortable. I am so proud to take my goddaughter to the library. She's in Indiana with her moms, and when they came to visit, they were just astounded by how amazing our children's section is. Um, Selfishly, I really love the fact that at midnight when I couldn't sleep, I downloaded Council of Dolls and started e-listening to it.
Thank you. I don't know if that's good nighttime reading, but that's okay. Daniel, you're next.
Well, currently I love the ebooks for my Kindle now that I'm retired. But for 40 some years, my favorite thing about the library was getting books that I couldn't obtain from law libraries, textbooks on subjects in which I was involved in litigation, textbooks like firefighting and learning about how firefighters fight fires without knowing anything about them in the first place. So I love the fact in the past that I could get books I couldn't get in law libraries. And more than that, when I had a client that refused to come downtown, it was absolutely wonderful to have a space that I could rent and prepare witnesses or take depositions or prepare clients. And this was a wonderful service that I took advantage of repeatedly over those years. So I really have two favorites. One is those rooms that we used for depositions, and number two, getting the textbooks on fields of study that I couldn't find in law libraries.
Thank you. Annie?
Another tough question, which I'm going to cheat a little because there's not a single favorite. And my favorite thing about the library is all the many ways that I use it. I love the youth services and that there is a place for my upcoming middle schooler to go and find, community and friends in a safe, welcoming space. It means a lot to me that my child feels safe at the library, that the librarians know my children, help them find, what they're looking for. One time, one of the librarians called me with information about Lexile numbers when I was helping my children with reading. That's amazing. Um, the library got me through the pandemic, particularly using Hoopla when we were so isolated and I didn't have anything and I had two preschoolers to teach. And I also had to homeschool my first grader through the pandemic, which I never could have done without the public library. I think two of my favorite memories are when my kiddo made their teacher a mug in the creative studio a month ago with support and mentorship from the staff. And when the library went out to the community at Loteria to do a Loteria at Taco 76, and my kids got to play Loteria, just something that they missed from their time when we lived in Mexico. And we had so much fun. And I loved that the library came into the community. So
Thank you. I think we're going to go into closing statements. So Colin, you're going to start off again with that 1 minute closing statement. You can wrap things up. You can finish a thought from maybe some of the other answers if you want to build on that, but take this time for closing up and telling the voters why you should be that next board elected official.
Yeah, so thank you for this opportunity and special thanks to the Women's League for moderating and for the library for hosting this event. In closing, I stand firmly behind the core values of the library. When you elect me, I will never allow banning of books. I'll safeguard patrons' privacy in this digital age. I will ensure that every community member has equitable access to our meeting and event spaces. I also believe in investing even more in our youth-centered services that engage young people and secure the future of the library. And importantly, I will always work to ensure that our library is safe from violence, standing united against any threats to our staff and patrons. Together, we can build a library that honors tradition, embraces innovation, and serves as a vibrant, safe hub for Oak Park. Again, my name is Colin Bird Martinez. I hope you support me and my Library for All for Always Compatriots, Annie Wilkinson, and Mika Yamamoto. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone out there for attending tonight's event and those who watch it online. I encourage you all to spread the word about the election April 1st so that we get a good turnout, and encourage your friends to learn about the candidates and come out and vote. Oak Park's Public Library is a wonderful institution. It's a unique and valuable resource source for the residents. Libraries should continue to innovate and create partnerships in the community to cultivate opportunities for both personal advancement and enrichment, and to cultivate a true sense of community. If elected, I'll work with my fellow board members, with the new executive director, and the people of Oak Park to ensure that the library retains its integrity and reputation to help empower all to fulfill their aspirations. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
So thank you so much. Again, my name is Megan Botman. I think that my background as a dedicated community member and, like I said, as an experienced professional librarian, I would bring a voice to the board. I am very excited for this new executive director. I think it would be an exciting time for us to start this journey together, me first on the board and them in this job. I'm excited to see what kind of things they have in store for the library. Like I said, I would want to lead through thoughtful, fair, and transparent leadership. Oak Park Library and its branches are very important, and I agree with Colin, making sure all of the staff and the community feel safe there is my #1 priority. And I hope that you will vote for me. And like you said, remember to come out April 1st so that we get a good turnout. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and the Oak Park Public Library staff for putting together tonight's forum, as well as the forums for all of the other races that are happening that you've been doing. And thank you to all of you who have attended. Our village is fortunate to have such an engaged group of folks running for the library board this year. The Oak Park Library is one of our critical public institutions. The board provides a governing vision for the library, but is the staff who clock in and out every day who make it the beloved place that it is. My pledge is that if reelected, I will continue to support policies that attract and empower staff so that they feel the safety and freedom to pursue innovative programs that have made us a leader among public libraries. I will also work with our next executive director to develop budgets that balance the needs of the library with the fiscal impact of property taxes on our community. I will listen to the staff inside the building and my neighbors, even the ones that don't always agree with me. Please vote for me on April 1st, and that's no joke.
Thank you. Maya?
Hi. Thank you so much to the Oak Park Public Library as well as the League of Women Voters. Appreciate this time and all the work that you do in this community. Local elections are very important, and I ask you for the right to be able to serve and for that honor and for that privilege. I believe in compassionate, collaborative leadership. I always try and listen, and I will continue um, in that perseverance. I know that there is lots of work ahead, and I am not afraid of it. Thank you so much. And I ask again for your vote and the honor to continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel?
Well, thank you to the League of Women's Voters and the Oak Park Public Library for hosting this forum. I think I can summarize all of the closing statements that I've heard, that we all agree that we have a wonderful library. And what's a wonderful library? A wonderful library is a library with very extensive and diverse collections. We have that. A wonderful library is a library with extensive programs and diverse programs. We have that. A wonderful library is a library with wonderful outreach. We have that. A wonderful library is a library with great staff. We have it. So what don't we have? What we don't have is an open process between not only the governing board and the staff, but what no one has mentioned yet is a relationship with the community. Because if I'm any judge of the community at this point, they need an explanation for a number of things that are going on. Number one, the reasons why Jocelyn Dixon was fired abruptly when she was not even given an evaluation over 13 or 14 months. That's what's needed. And that's why I want you to vote for me, Daniel Suber, at the election on April 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Annie?
My kids concur that we wrap up. Sitting here with me. I want to thank you all for being here, and to the League of Women Voters and the Public Library for hosting this forum. It's an honor to participate in free, fair, and competitive elections, local elections. So thank you. A vote for me, Annie Wilkinson, is a vote to ensure that the Oak Park Public Library is supported in its role as a pillar of our community, and that it remains a space and a resource that it's accessible to all of us for always. I stand for effective democratic governance, strong community engagement and youth services, and responsible stewardship of our public resources, including our own human resources, the people who run our library and make it what it is. If elected, I will work collaboratively with library staff and leadership, with our community, patrons, taxpayers, and residents, and other governance bodies in Oak Park to ensure that this happens. And I encourage you to vote as well for myself, as well as my Library for Always candidates, Mika Yamamoto and Colin Bird Martinez. We'll see you at the polls on April 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Mika?
Yes, thank you, as everyone said, to League of Women Voters for hosting this, for the Oak Park Public Library, for also providing so many services for this, and everyone who's here and took the time to listen to us care about the library. And I love that all of us here agree that we want a library for everyone. And if elected, I will work hard to make sure that everyone continues to feel welcome in the library, that knowledge is free, and the staff is happy. My name, once again, is Mika Yamamoto, and please vote for me and my fellow Libraries for Always candidates, Annie Wilkinson and Colin Bird Martinez. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Well, democracy is not a spectator sport, and we thank all of you candidates for your time tonight and for choosing to run for local office. It is not an easy task. I want to remind everybody that a recording of this event will be posted on our webpage and the library's YouTube channel. Our next Oak Park candidate forum is Thursday, February 20th for the Oak Park Village trustee and president races. You can register on the library's calendar for this forum in addition to the League's website. Early voting starts on Monday, March 17th, with Election Day being Tuesday, April 1st. More election information is on our website. Please remind your friends, neighbors, and relatives to vote in this election. Local elections are important. And we thank everyone for attending tonight. We had a good turnout. And again, thank you, candidates, for your time. You did a great job. And I wish you all good luck in this upcoming election. Thank you.